We'll call our November 17th meeting of the Cookeville City Council to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Councilman Woodford,
Present.
Councilman Henry,
Here.
Mayor Shelton,
Here.
Vice Mayor Epps.
Here.
Councilman Womack, 4 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite those that wish to do so to stand for the invocation given tonight by Tim Milligan, pastor of First United Pentecostal Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States flag.
First of all, I'd like to commend Mayor Shelton and each of these council members for this forum. Appreciate the opportunity to lead this service in prayer. Can we bow our heads together? Lord Jesus, we humbly come before you this evening with thanksgiving and gratitude for the many blessings that you have bestowed upon us all. I pray right now that you would cover Mayor Shelton, his staff, and each of these council members along with their families with your shelter of protection as they endeavor to serve this city and our community. I ask that you grant each of them wisdom and guidance as they conduct the business at hand both tonight and in the future. I pray that you strengthen their hands and their resolve to accomplish your will and purpose in all of these tasks at hand. We ask all of this in your name, in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Item 3, consider approval of agenda as presented. Are there any changes or corrections?
Mayor and council, I would ask you to add 2 items to the agenda tonight. The first item relates to a grant contract with the Tennessee Department of Transportation. It would be consider authorizing the mayor to execute the Community Transportation Planning Services grant contract with TDOT. And the second item, 7E, consider authorizing the city manager to execute the corridor traffic operations analysis contract with Parsons Brinkerhoff. But I would ask you to consider adding both those items to the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a motion on the agenda as modified?
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Under old business, 5A, consider approval of minutes of council meeting held on November 3rd, 2016. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
On the consent agenda, 6A, consider awarding bids for wire and fault indicators for the electric department. Do we have it is low bidder? Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Under new business, 7A, hold a public hearing and consider on first reading ordinance O-161022, rezoning 39 Depot Street and 4041 South Oak Avenue from CL Local Commercial to CBD Central Business District. Mr. Mills.
Mayor and council members, here's the general location of these properties that were being considered for rezoning. And they're identified as parcels 8 and 10 on tax map 53G Group F, and combined they consist of about 107,000 square feet or 2.47 acres. This also includes about 28,160 square feet or 6/10 of an acre of street and alley right-of-ways. There's some alleys that run through here and through here, and here's the street right-of-ways that would be included in it. The properties are bounded by Depot Street to the north, South Oak Avenue to the west, and an unnamed alley to the south. Located on parcel 8 is what is known as the old Wilson building, and the parcel is split north to south by an unnamed alley. Parcel 10, which is this tract here, has recently been purchased by the petitioners, the Oxford Group. It used to be owned by the Builder Supply Company. These properties are contiguous with CL zoning to the northwest and south, and with properties zoned as CBD to the north and east. The zoning of the southern portion of parcel 8 is currently split. Parcel 8 runs like this, and its zoning is currently split with the eastern portion zoned as CBD. As I noted, the Oxon Wilson Project LLC has acquired these properties in addition to parcel 7, which is this tract right here, which is also on the same group of map, for the purpose of constructing a hotel conference center. Parcel 7 is already zoned as Central Business District. The CL district is intended for small and moderate-sized office and personal and business services and general retail businesses. It has a restriction of a maximum square footage for an individual development of up to 50,000 square feet when located on a major collector, or only 25,000 square feet when not. Commercial uses are required to provide setbacks of 30 feet on all street frontages and 10 feet for all rear yards. The Central Business District, which is our center of commerce for the city and the community, does not have setback requirements with a few exceptions. Hotels are permitted in both zoning districts. Conference centers are not specifically addressed in our zoning code, but would be classified as and permitted as accessory uses to hotels. Off-street parking, in compliance with the provisions of Section 205.8D of the zoning code, must be provided in both zoning districts. This requires a minimum of one space per rented room for hotels, plus one space per 250 square feet of office area, plus one space for every 4 persons to capacity for meeting rooms. Again, this applies in both zoning districts. Our 2030 plan indicates that this property is being best used for mixed-use commercial industrial development, and this would include a hotel or convention center would also fit within this district, and that would apply for both zoning districts. In the opinion of the planning department, the proposed rezoning is necessary to facilitate the development of the proposed hotel conference center. Again, the CL has restrictions on the minimum size of the structure. It also has more restrictions for setbacks. And in this case, with split zoning, you'd have portions of the property would have to have a 30-foot setback. Those located in CL, and the portions in CBD would be could go all the way up to the property line, provided visibility is made available. The proposed rezoning was approved by the Planning Commission and is recommended by the Planning Department.
Thank you. This time we'll open the floor up for a public hearing. Do we have anyone that would like to speak to this matter from the audience? All right. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Motion is second. Any discussion among the council? Yes, sir.
Mary James, you mentioned specifically, you said our codes do not mention specifically conference centers, but there's some language that would allow those. Would you elaborate just a little bit on that?
It would be classified as an accessory use to a hotel, and under those grounds, anywhere a hotel is permitted, that is considered an accessory use and would be permitted. And hotels are permitted in both zoning districts, so this wouldn't affect the use of the property.
Thank you.
But anytime you have a property that has 2 different zones on one track, you want to make it one zone if you can.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the right thing to do, because it's going to complicate the development with 2 different zones with a comprehensive development of a larger site. To have it split, and Central Business makes the most sense here because it gives them greater flexibility to actually do a larger building, and it does benefit on the setback requirements. But I want to make it clear, and we stress this at Planning Commission, this does not, if it is rezoned, reduce their requirement for off-street parking. And that's been a concern for this site. I know you guys, we had another development here a few months ago. We'll make it clear, this does not reduce their off-street parking requirement.
Or on-site parking.
Off-street parking requirement.
Right. So on-site parking will not reduce that at all,
No,
changing this zone.
will not.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, James, this is exciting time for Cookeville. This is really a major project that's going to get started here. Hopefully sooner than later. And I'm glad to be able to push the green button to make sure this sucker gets done. Yeah.
Any other comments? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. I'll vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you. 7B, consider authorizing the city manager to execute deeds transferring city right-of-way in exchange for property obtained for improvements to Ridgedale Drive. Mr. Mills.
Mayor and council members, in April of this year, the city council approved an agreement authorizing the city manager to acquire and exchange city right-of-way relative to the realignment of Ridgedale Drive. Ridgedale Drive is located on the western portion of the city. Well, this is the map that was reviewed when the agreement was reviewed in April. Under the agreement, the city of Cookeville obtained from Mr. Parker Bowles approximately 17,488 square feet of property for a right-of-way to complete improvements to Ridgedale Drive, which basically consisted of realignments. You can see on this map, Ridgedale Drive actually made this big U through here. And as in exchange for the right-of-way from the city of from Mr. Parker to the city of Cookeville, the city of Cookeville agreed to convey to Mr. Bowles approximately 16,986 square feet of property which was previously used for Ridgedale. So what we acquired is through here. This is right of way we acquired. These are slope easements we acquired, and we agreed back in April to give this property back to Mr. Bowles when the project was completed. The project has now been completed, and we would respectfully request that the council authorize the city manager to execute deeds conveying the agreed-upon property back to Mr. Bowles.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion and second. Anyone like to speak to the motion? All vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you. 7C, consider authorizing the city manager to enter into an engineering contract for sewer routing study, Water Quality Department. Mr. Kelly.
Mayor and City Council, I'm seeking council authorization for the city manager to enter into a contract with Gresham Smith and Partners to develop a preliminary engineering report for our department. This report will summarize the findings of a study to assess alternatives to either upsize the capacity of an 18-inch sanitary sewer line located south of the Bell Acres pump station, or reduce the flow in that sewer line by rerouting wastewater away from that line to other parts of the collection system. The project will also entail additional flow monitoring within the sewer system and within the Tennessee Tech sewer shed. This will allow us to perform a post-rehabilitation analysis of previous work completed within that TTU basin. The estimated cost for each of the alternatives will be provided in the PER. The cost is broken down in your packet there for the engineering fees, the flow monitoring fees, and the reimbursable expenses. I would recommend your approval and would be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All vote.
4
Thank
yes
you.
votes, motion carries.
Thank you. 7D, consider authorizing the mayor to execute the Community Transportation Planning Services Grant Contract with TDOT. Mr. Mills.
Mayor and council members, in January of this year, we submitted an application to TDOT for a transportation planning grant. The purpose of the grant was to complete a study on traffic flow, identify potential projects to improve traffic flow, and to develop a plan for the synchronization of our traffic signals. The application was for $250,000, and the council, through resolution R-15-12-17, committed to the local match, which was 10% or no more than $25,000. In June of this year, we were notified by TDOT that the city had been awarded a grant in the amount of $200,000. Subsequent to that, we were assigned Parsons and Brinkerhoff as the planning and engineering firm to complete the transportation plan. Recently, the city was notified by TDOT that the Federal Highway Administration has determined that the development of traffic engineering options and signal synchronization were not eligible under the grant program. The removal of these items reduces the project cost to $176,811, and the city's required match is then $17,681.11. The project is to be completed within 12 months. The planning department respectfully requests that the council grant approval to execute the transportation planning grant contract with TDOT and to authorize the submittal of the required matching funds.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
James, you and I were talking about yesterday, during the Envision Cookeville process, the 5 categories that we looked at, 200+ suggestions, ideas, and thoughts, and from our community. And cumulatively, the number one issue was traffic flow, and of course, obviously, this addresses that. Could you be a little specific about, to the extent that this happens, and we believe it will, if it passes, what areas, what specific parts of the city will we study?
I'll be glad to. And the next item that we've added is directly related to that, because this first grant, or this what will be done under this phase, is basically collecting data. And if you approve the next item that's coming up, that's where we'll actually come up with some plans and some options to do improvement that I'll go over in just a second. But what this specifically will look at would be Jefferson Avenue, Willow Avenue, Spring Street from one end of the city limits to the other, US 70, Broad Street, and 10th Street. It also will do, hopefully with the second portion of this, we'll look at a traffic flow in specific around the courthouse square. Those are the main routes that we've asked them to look at that they can cover under this amount of grant money. They'll be looking at, in terms of traffic flow, they'll do traffic counts, we'll do turn analysis at each intersection. We'll hopefully have information on where we need to possibly put new signals in, or where we may even need to remove signals. But the goal here is to develop an overall plan for these major corridors on how we can better accommodate traffic in the city of Cookeville.
Is signal synchronization a part of this?
Not a part of this grant. That was pulled out by TDOT, at the direction of the Federal Highway Administration. We still think that's something very important that needs to be done. It needs to come out of this, and we're going to propose a different way to do that under the next item on the agenda. But let me say one other thing. This information that will be gathered as part of this grant, you have to have that to be able to do the synchronization plan and the traffic flow analysis.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mill, on these two items that we're going to consider here, 7D and 7E, when we pass these, this study will begin immediately. It'll be
Yes.
November to
Both,
November.
and I don't want to speak ahead, assuming this second item's approved, but both of these, by the contracts, are to be completed within 12 months.
Any other comments? All vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
7E, consider authorizing the city manager to execute the quarter traffic operations analysis contract with Parsons Brinkenhoff. Mr. Mills.
Okay, Mayor and council members, and as I just stated, the Federal Highway Administration pulled out what we felt like were what we actually wanted to get out of this grant program. And it was determined that they were engineering and not planning. And Mike and I and Greg Brown, our Public Works Director, met with officials from TDOT and also officials from Parsons Brinkerhoff and stressed how important this was for us to be able to have this data and these plans and these options for traffic flow improvements. We believe it's vital for us to be able to address our future traffic flow issues. So we met with Parsons Brinkerhoff, and they've agreed to provide the city with these engineering and planning options under a separate scope of services. And this scope of work would include recommendations to improve traffic flows on Willow and Jefferson Avenue, Spring and Broad and East 10th Streets. It would include updated signal timing, phasing, and coordination plans. It would also include recommendations for capacity improvements that would include telling us where will we need to consider constructing new turn lanes, where will we need to include possibly building additional lanes to handle traffic flow. They'll also provide us with an access management plan, and they'll provide us with recommendations for treatment of traffic flow around the courthouse. So they'll give us options for how we best can deal with traffic around the courthouse. These are the things that we wanted from the get-go on this, and we believe it's very important that we can get this at the same time. And it makes sense, since Parsons Brinkerhoff is doing all the data collection, that it would be more economically feasible and be done in a more timely fashion if we can allow them to go ahead and do these additional phases of the project. The cost for the vision of these services is $21,822, and as I noted earlier, the work is to be completed within 12 months. And as I also stated earlier, we'll use the data that they collect under the grant from TDOT to develop or provide these services. So combined with the original grant and with this additional scope of work from Parsons, the total cost to the city would be $39,503.11. This is about $15,000 more dollars than the council approved the resolution R-15-1217 back in December. But the planning department respectfully requests that the council authorize the execution of the contract in the amount of $21,822 with Parsons Brinkerhoff for a corridor traffic operations analysis and recommendations as identified in the submitted scope of work, and the scope of work is depicted on the screen.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
I have a question, Mr.
Yes,
Mayor.
sir.
You would? Hey, James,
Yes, sir.
help me with a little bit here. I mean, and I'm sure they're going to do this, but and I just need your kind of help with this. Right now we're going through probably one of the bigger construction booms that I've seen in my 29 years here, and that entails lots of traffic, lots of trucks, lots of extra traffic going around in because of that. Do you expect? I mean, and would you be able to supervise and make sure that when we do this analysis with data I don't think we would have this kind of traffic during this building boom. Will these folks take that into account? Will this engineering firm and their data collection and analysis of that data, will they take that into account?
Yes, they will. And under the proposal with TDOT, the first phase of this, I'm going to break it into two phases since it's two different. Under that, they will develop a level of service projections through the year 2040. And that'll be based on our projected land use, which we've already given them most of the data we've got, which is a lot of data. They have our 2030 plan, they have our projections for population, economic development, and they will use current data that we have on building permit applications. Those kind of things will all be used to make projections for the future. And again, they're going to do level service. Level service are really key for determining where we're going to need to make improvements, and they'll make those projections through 2040. Another thing that the data that they're going to gather, which is really important for us, in addition to actually coming up with plans for improvement, is we use these for justification when we apply for grant money. And we've been really successful and been really fortunate. We've had this kind of data in the past. It's becoming out of date, so this will really help us for many different reasons through the future.
You know, I asked that question because, I mean, I had the opportunity to sit on a committee that drew, when the census came out every 10 years, I've sat on two of those committees, and we tried to, you take your data in and you try to forecast where the growth is going to be so you can make, you know, district lines in such a way that it's one man, one vote. And I know it might be comparing apples to oranges, but I know that's really hard to do, and you need really good data analysis to do that. As a matter of fact, we didn't really get it right.
Well, I mean, it's a guess, but you want it to be an educated guess. And that's, I mean, there's a lot of factors we can't account for. I mean, there's so many things. I mean, a war or something like that could just change everything. But we project based on what's happened in the past and based on as best we can regional and national influences. But it's an educated guess. So we hope it's a well-educated guess.
I suppose they have a model too to help, because that was one of the things I remember doing when trying to forecast growth during the census is where growth is going to be, and we got it wrong both times, because just growth depends on other factors. It doesn't so much focus on trends; it focuses on developers and costs of land and things like that.
Well, there's lots of ways we control growth. I mean, we control it through our utility policies. We control it through zoning. So we have ways where we can guide growth. Where new streets are built, goes a long ways to where being able to guide where growth happens.
So you feel comfortable that this is going to be the best educated guess that we can?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm just really thankful that we were able to get this grant. When you think about what all we're potentially going to get out of this, for $40,000, if we went out and contracted with a private firm to do this, we're looking a lot more than what we're committing here. So I think this is a really good deal for the city. This is a really respected transportation and planning and engineering firm. I think we're going to have a really good product.
Okay.
Money well spent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes.
Any other comments? All vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the end of our agenda portion of the meeting. We have time at the end if anyone would like to address the council on non-agenda items. Do we have anyone that would like to address the council on any matter? If you would just come to the lectern and identify yourself, you'll have 3 minutes to speak about.
Hello, Mayor and Councilman. My name is Spencer Grissom. I am one of the presiding authorities of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints here in this district. We call our district stakes. May of this year, there was a stake formed in Cookeville. In that stake formation, I was called to be one of the presiding officers of the stake. Some of you may know Attorney David Day. He was called to be the stake president, and we're here under his instruction tonight to propose maybe a partnership with the city for a service project in the coming year. We've had success in the past few years working with different cities in the region for beautification projects, and this is Brother Armstrong Smith from one of our members here in Cookeville. He actually led up those projects in different communities. Actually, some of those communities were close by here: Baxter, Monterey, Livingston. We had several projects up in Monterey, and I think it would be best for Brother Armstrong Smith to be the one to let you know exactly what those projects entailed. But just for some information, our state consists of about 2,700 members, and that's members from Lebanon to Crossville up into Jamestown, mostly the Upper Cumberland region, including Sparta and Van Buren counties. And This year in Cookeville alone, we have just over 600 members, Cookeville and Putnam County. In this project, we will likely be able to bring in 300 to 400 members to do this beautification project. And I think I'll turn the time over to Michael to talk to you about that.
Good evening, thank you.
Hi.
So you may have heard what we did in Monterey a few years ago. We did 3 service projects in Monterey on 3 consecutive years, and then we worked heavily on the ice storm last year. So what we're proposing, as Spencer has said, is to bring 200 to 300, maybe 400 people in, and also liaise with other churches in this area to work with you. Now, we would bring people in free of charge. They will work for a whole day. And if you can identify a place or places, maybe a park or 2 parks or other areas in the city which need help for us to go in and clean up. We could also go in and visit the homes of the elderly, the handicapped, the widows who don't have the capacity themselves to clean up their yards for the summer or at the end of the year before the fall, and do that again free of charge. So what we're looking from you is a general kind of consensus that you would be okay with us doing that here in the city, either in the spring or in the fall. And then if you have a name of someone that we could approach to make that happen.
I think it's phenomenal. You said, so we would just you could do it either in the spring or the fall.
Yes, that's right.
We will talk about it, and staff can talk about it, and I think that's awesome. Yeah, thank you. We'll get back with you. If you don't care, make sure you leave some contact info, and
Yes, we will. Thank you very
we
much.
appreciate that very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Council members, anything? No? All right. We will be adjourned.